Welcome to The Next Level. I'm JVL here with my best friends, Sarah Longwell and Tim Miller of the Bulwark. If you're new to the show, go ahead and hit subscribe, hit the like button, leave us a review on your podcast service of choice. The reviews actually help more than you would think. And also come to thebulwark.com. We've got great stuff there every day. Lots of smart pieces that'll tell you about the world around you. Great podcasts, great newsletters. Sign up and get Charlie Sykes' morning newsletter for free with no ads every day. Tim,
that all
Sarah,
sounds nice, but they should also tell their pals. Tell your pals about us, you know?
Tell your pals,
then you can have then you can have a little something to talk about. You know,
5
you
stars.
guys can riff on how wrong or right we are, or sort of, you know, reflect on the funniest lines that I had over the course of a podcast. You know, it helps build community. So that just might be a good idea.
Tim, do you want to spend any time excluding JVL by talking about our in-person live event from last week and how great it was?
Man, thank goodness
JVL
wasn't there.
Do that at the end. We'll do.
It was nice.
That's what people want. Okay, listen.
I was a little toasty. Sarah was a little concerned about me. She asked me for a count on the number of bourbons I had. I told her it was a gentleman's 3. Was just the right amount for hosting a live event. You know, not one too many, not one too few.
I'm surprised you went bourbons instead of edibles, since everyone tells me how great they are. All right. We had a debate in Florida between Ron DeSantis and Sarah. You certainly watched the Golden Girls.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, I can only assume you never watched the Golden Girls, nor even understand what those two words mean.
I wasn't into it as a child, but as an adult gay man, I've had Golden Girls culture thrust upon me, and so I get the basics.
Everything about Charlie Crist sounds and feels like David Leisure's character from the Golden Girls. Am I wrong?
Oh, yeah, that
like
guy.
I
remember that guy.
Bizarre tan and like the over-eager eyes and the shocking white hair. He's the most plastic Joe Isuzu type figure I think I've ever seen in national politics. And yet he kind of beat up on Ron DeSantis, who turns out to be a black hole of charisma.
So I was watching the Twitters last night, and I jumped into the debate because, and by that I mean I started watching the debate because the people like Charlie Crist is wiping the floor with Ron DeSantis. And so I started it from the beginning and started watching, and I was like, that is not what's happening here. Was Charlie Crist is not wiping the floor with Ron DeSantis. Charlie Crist is doing an okay job. I have myself never quite found Charlie Crist to be a compelling political persona.
Yeah, well, that's because gay men and lesbians are not natural allies. So I don't know if you are a good
And
judge.
I remember when what was the name of that documentary that came out? Outraged, right? Was it about outing people, and it was outing gay Republicans, and the whole thing was like about Charlie Crist. Mm-hmm. And I am naturally on his side to some degree. I think it's got to be tough. It's got to be tough for him. But I didn't find Charlie Crist to be compelling. I did think he did, he certainly held his own, but I think what people were reacting to is that, and this is bad for Ron DeSantis, people have been putting Ron DeSantis, these big profiles of him. This is the guy who's the understudy for Trump, building up his profile. But nobody's seen anything longer than a Twitter level clip of him shouting at a reporter or a teenager for the last, 18 months or longer than that, last couple of years during COVID, whatever. And so I think seeing him have to go toe to toe with somebody was a reminder that he is only a slightly above average politician. And I was watching it thinking, what's this guy like on a stage with Donald Trump? And I think Donald Trump eats that guy alive in a head-to-head. Not that Trump debates anybody necessarily, but if you made a fantasy league of politicians and how they would debate, Ron DeSantis is not the most likable guy in the world.
Well, and he's not alpha. Before we go to you, Tim, Sebastian, can we have that audio?
Ron, you talk about Joe Biden a lot. I understand. You think you're going to be running against him. I can see how you might get confused. But you're running for governor. You're running for governor. And I have a question for you. You're running for governor. Why don't you look in the eyes of the people of the state of Florida and say to them, if you're reelected, you will serve a full 4-year term as governor? Yes or no? Yes or no, Ron? Will you serve a full 4-year term if you're reelected governor of Florida? It's not a tough question. It's a fair question. He won't tell you.
DeSantis literally just stands there and stares straight ahead. And what Trump would have done is Trump would have had some, I'm going to go up with strength. I'm going to answer. A lot of people are asking questions like this, and it's strong. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to beat you. Look at my poll numbers. I'm up by 11,500 points on this ugly tan Charlie, right? I mean, you can see that's what full alpha aggro looks like in the, the new Sally Jesse Raphael politics that we have in America. But instead, DeSantis just stands there and looks straight ahead like a mope. Tim?
With the easiest kind of thing. Every politician in history has had this question asked of them, this exchange. Any ambitious politician has this. And there are a million ways you could have gone with it. There also is like a DeSantis's face, which I was trying to do. He makes these very, I'm just trying to be very comfortable in my own skin, and I'm not comfortable, and I don't know what to do with my arms. And as somebody who's moved from being a flack to having to be a content man, I get it. Sometimes I don't know what to do with my arms. So, it was when I did that first interview with Jared Polis, I was like, what does one do with their arms when they're asking questions? It is, you have to learn this stuff. But DeSantis, you would think that as, the next best thing, would at least, look minimally comfortable up there. He looks very uncomfortable. He looks like he's in his father's first communion suit. The jacket doesn't quite fit. And he's
got stubby little T-Rex arms.
Yeah, he's like Cartman in a first communion suit, and he doesn't know what to do. He can just, or Nelson, it's like when Nelson from The Simpsons would have to put on would have to get dressed up for church. That's what it looks like. It's very uncomfortable, and his voice is not great for me. So no, I don't know that this really matters that much. I was intrigued that Charlie Crist was on Fox today. Kind of trying to press the advantage a little bit. One of the clips I saw was of him talking about how crime is actually up under DeSantis. I don't know if that's actually going to land on Fox, but I do wish some more Democrats would do this. I mean, they don't even try to push this back on Trump. All of the stuff that Republicans complain about actually happened during Trump's administration, and now continues under DeSantis's. So there's a little bit of life from Charlie Crist, which is encouraging. But I definitely think the bigger takeaway was just that the overconfident wish casting from all of the anti-Trumpers who are just desperate for Donald Trump to go away and be replaced by Ron DeSantis. They don't really mind, right? Because they're not the target. What appealed to Trump for them was not his ability to do slams and to insult people and be funny and own the libs. That wasn't what, your National Review types like to, was not the reason why they came around on Trump. And so they have been kind of hoping that they can get what they want out of DeSantis and that he can be enough of a imitation version of Trump, to appeal to the people that do like that. And you watched that last night and think that it's not really, that doesn't seem very likely, actually. It seems like a wish casting that's not going to come to fruition for them.
Yeah, and can I just say, so Kari Lake got asked the same question, will you be governor for all 4 years? And she was like, yeah, because you know what? No one holds you to that stuff. Literally everybody just lies.
Literally,
so
no. Yeah.
Nobody just tells the truth. I don't know what's going to happen. So she said, sure. Yeah. So if she doesn't, what are they going to do? She doesn't care. She's going to be running for vice president.
Or president.
Or president.
Which I think is the key point here. I mean, she is so much better than him.
So much better than him. This is, I mean,
hold on. We're going to get the cat. I don't want to spill our Kari Lake.
All right.
Spill our Kari Lake stuff here. Do you think we are inching closer to the open warfare between DeSantis and Trump? We had the fantastic Financial Times cover story, I think, which finally said something. It said the smart version of Trump or whatever the headline was, which is the story I've been waiting for somebody to run. Because it has to be on a cover in order for Trump to obsess about it. Are we getting there yet? No? Is Trump just going to keep holding his powder?
No, he yelled it. He did he got mad at DeSantis on, I think he truthed about this. He truthed about DeSantis endorsing O'Day, who is the Colorado Republican senator
Rhino
who's
Cup.
running a bit above expectations right now, but who has been doing that because in a place like Colorado, bluer state, he's running away from Trump, away from election lies, and that is helping him do well. And DeSantis has decided that this whole endorsement race thing that's going on the right is like a real signal situation. But anyway, so Trump truthed that it was a bad idea or something at DeSantis over the headline that he had endorsed O'Day.
I know, and he did that, and it also, again, it just goes to what we were saying, like the Trump's just would sniff out, like if DeSantis can't navigate his way around something as simple as will you run again in 4 years, like any of that weakness is just blood in the water for Trump. And so I do think, I don't know that we
The same thing with
are
the vaccination
in open
stuff,
warfare.
right?
Yeah,
I mean, because that's Trump will zero right in on that.
Yeah.
You know, did you get vaccinated, Ron? Right? And DeSantis will stare at the camera.
Yeah, I just don't know that we're going to get it to open warfare. I'm not 100%. This is not a hard and fast Tim prediction for the Tim is always right shirt that I'm lobbying for, but it does seem to me like the most likely scenario is DeSantis likes the attention he's getting. You know, so it seems like, I guess, Tom Brady is texting with him right now. It's unclear to me. I would like to see a screenshot of those texts. I mean, these are two, like, very robotic humans, Tom Brady and Ron DeSantis. Like, what are they texting? Like, nice football match, Thomas. Like, thanks, Ron. Nice interview. It's hard to imagine their casual chat together, but apparently they're texting. Elon was saying nice things about Ron. You know, he's getting invited.
So is
to
Alex
everything.
Jones.
Yeah, so is Alex Jones, right? Like, so all of his faves. So he's getting invited to stuff, you know, and so if you're DeSantis, you're like, well, let's milk this. I like the attention, right? You never know what happens with Trump. But it seems to me, just watching his performance, like, is this a guy that's really up for it? Like, going head to head with him? It feels like if the most likely scenario is Trump announces after the midterm, like maybe DeSantis just sort of sits on the sidelines and doesn't really say anything about it and you know, kind of sees how things play out. But it's hard to see this guy even trying it. For me,
Yeah,
I don't know.
So, you know, I talk to reporters about DeSantis a lot because a lot of times reporters call and they want to know like what the focus groups say about DeSantis. And one of the things I've always maintained is that like there is a path for DeSantis. Like if you ask a focus group of people, okay, if Trump doesn't run, who do you want to see run? Or even when people say that they're just ready to move on from Trump, you say, okay, to whom? DeSantis. It's always DeSantis. And so I've always thought like, oh, there's an available audience for DeSantis. Like there's a world in which if DeSantis was an unbelievable performer, that like he could have a moment. But I think what was interesting about last night's debate, and this is the point, is just I think that he's been really overhyped. And I'm not sure he's just got the stuff to do this. And my guess is he knows he doesn't quite have the stuff to do this. And if I were, I always say this when people are like, you know, we talk about the debates, like Liz Cheney could get on the stage with Donald Trump and like hammer at him and go toe to toe. Like he would have a hard time, I think, making her look small. But to these like fake alphas, he destroys them in a way that is like Marco Rubio will never recover as like a man. Like he just, you know, it's like, and I don't mean like in a hyper masculine way. I just mean like Donald Trump held his manhood cheap, you know, showed him to be like this empty person, and like he'll never be an alpha again. No one will ever take him seriously. And I think Ron DeSantis risks that. Like he could get another 4 years of being the understudy, of being the heir apparent, and not having to like show that he's got the goods, because I'm not sure they're there.
So the other side of this is he might be looking
game though, right? Where he's playing this dangerous game where he's tiptoeing up to the edge of tugging on Trump's cape and then backing off of it, right? He's not in the full submissive posture of a Kari Lake, right? Or Doug Mastriano. Right. Like he's really trying to see how far he can go without being a supplicant. And I don't know, maybe Trump forgives that. maybe not, right? I don't know. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a dangerous game, though. I think that Trump, one of the things that is smart about Trump politically, his instinct is, if any one of us on this podcast went on Fox tonight and said and brought out a red hat and put it on, and we said, we've seen enough, we want Mr. Trump to come back, full MAGA 2024. Like, he'd be truthing about us. We'd be invited down to the Cougar Pavilion. Like, Trump just wants to be loved, right? So it's not that dangerous of a game, because if DeSantis just stops pulling on the cape and gets back in line, like, Trump will welcome back into the fold like snippety snap. So I think that he has a little bit of space to do this. It's just, the question is, when you turn, like, once the key turns on and you become combatant, then that's where things get really dicey from. Because what DeSantis really, in all of these scenarios, I agree there's a scenario where DeSantis could beat Trump. It's not a 0% chance. But in all these scenarios, I think the DeSantis people game this out as like, we're not really going to attack him that hard. We're just mostly going to focus on the future. We're going to talk about how, we'll do some little passive aggressive hits about how the wall wasn't really, built and all this sort of stuff. And like, that just doesn't work, because once you're opponent, you're opponent. And Trump goes full to 11, and he'll just use whatever excuse it is to say that Ron DeSantis' little baby punch required a counter punch, and Trump takes it to 11. And so the only way to actually do it is to fully counter punch, or to just kind of wait in the wings, be nice, and hope that the hamburgers are the Merrick Garland take him out, right? And so there might be some point in attempting the latter strategy.
All right, listen, before we move on, I just want to throw this out there, because you mentioned it, Sarah, about when Trump announces after the midterms.
I mentioned it.
Oh, you mentioned it, Tim.
I do have kind of a higher register than Sarah, so I could see how
Sorry about that. So here's my question. Why not announce now? Right? Or, we are poised, right? The polling has turned around. I don't know if you noticed this, guys, but after I wrote about this, waving the flag about it last week, suddenly everybody else in the world started running pieces this weekend saying, oh, crap, the polling has turned around. Republicans, I think, are probably going to overperform what people thought they were going to be doing in mid-September or even the end of September. Why not get out in front of that parade if you're Trump? So that you can take credit for all of it.
Yeah, I agree. You won me over on this. I think that he should. I think that any day that he doesn't is a risk that something happens that makes things worse for him. But it seems like, I do think you risk, like, does he really want to deal with, like, what happens if the Republicans don't underperform, right? Like, things do look good right now. I think that the House is safe, but what happens if, as you've written about, JVL, there's a series of races, and it just happens the coin flip goes against Republicans in Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada, right? And Democrats end up increasing their majority, right? Then you risk totally being blamed, because it's like, oh man, that things were going Republicans' way, and then Trump announced it, and then boom, look what happened. We lost the Senate. So at this point, I think it's kind of too late for the JVL strategy, which in retrospect, I do think was probably a better one for him. But why rock the boat, assume Republicans take both, and then ride in on the coattails and make an announcement is kind of what I would expect from him.
I mean, I don't think there's any upside to him doing this, and I've never thought so, because I've wished he would, because I think it would hurt. I think it would hurt Republicans. But the reason is that his stamp is already all over these candidates, right? He handpicked them. He dragged them through their primaries. They are Trump's candidates. So, like, if he were to announce and then they underperform, he gets blamed, right? But, like, if they perform well, if Vance wins, if Masters wins, like, Trump already gets the credit for a lot of that. He'll take the credit in retrospect. I think it's smart of him to just wait and see how it shakes out.
So when is he going to jump in, Sarah?
Well, when's he going to jump in?
Yeah. Late November, early December? Does he wait till New Year's?
You guys, I know, I don't. This is just honestly how I feel. I'm not positive he will. I know that sounds
really?
crazy.
No, it's not crazy. Talk me through it. I think he has to get out before an indictment is announced.
I think he has to get in. Like, so if you're Trump, so I understand. And also, I mean, the other thing is like everybody has gone to him. Like the RNC, if you recall, literally threatened and leveraged his legal bills on him. Like, we will stop paying your legal bills if you announce before the midterms. Like, no, everybody knows strategically it's not a good idea. And I bet Tony Fabrizio and his pollsters went in there and said, look, this is what you'll do if, you're top of mind. And maybe they even, I mean, back in, we've had this vibe shift, but in the middle, the vibe shift toward the Democrats, one of the three reasons why Democrats were sort of overperforming expectations was that Donald Trump's salience had jumped in those moments, right? Because of the Mar-a-Lago documents, he was sort of back on people's minds. I think if he's going to go, he has to go first because the whole point of Trump is to freeze the field, right? Like, there's a whole bunch of candidates where if Trump doesn't run, I think it's a foregone conclusion that DeSantis runs. I think it's a foregone conclusion that Youngkin runs and a bunch of other, even like Ted Cruz, like a whole bunch of people are going to run.
Mike Pompeo,
Tom Cotton,
a lot of empty pizza ranches for those
That's
guys.
right. That's right. But a bunch of those people don't run if Trump runs. Right. I mean, like if Trump runs, he's probably the big question will be if DeSantis gets in, and then like he's probably running against Liz Cheney and like Larry Hogan,
Mike Pence,
and like
maybe.
And Mike Pence maybe. Although,
and maybe he convinces the state parties to circumvent the voting, right? I mean, this is
sure.
If he gets in, he gets in first. I think
certainly some of the
what are the
states will do
chances
that,
like Missouri and
Arizona,
Arkansas,
where Kelly Ward is running this state party. Yeah, of course.
That's
what
right.
What are the chances that they won't just say no? We're going to short circuit this. We're going to have
I think all bets are off once Trump is in, because like it was like what happened in 20, right? Where like we thought there was, there wasn't really a path to primary him, but like that didn't matter anyway. Like if like they were going to shut that down and they weren't going to let it happen. And so I think all bets are off if Trump gets in. I will say, like, if he doesn't announce within a week or two of the midterms and us knowing, I will become very like bullish on him not doing it, because I think that like the whole point of him has to be to get in early and freeze the field. Otherwise, like, what's he going to do? He's not going to like wait to see if Kristi Noem decides to run, or like Ron DeSantis. He's not going to let them get in first, right? Like, why would he do that?
Yeah, money, I guess. Once you're an official candidate, et cetera, you have to start spending hard dollars. I don't know. We're going to have plenty of time to talk about this in November and December. So I'll just say, I interviewed Maggie Haberman for the Commonwealth Club. You can watch it on YouTube if you want to Google it. And I tried to like zag and ask her different questions from all the obvious ones that everyone asks her. And I know there's people with Maggie derangement syndrome out there, so feel free to not watch it if you have MDS. The basic take is like, look, this guy loves to be loved, and he likes to have leverage over investigations. This is a historic fact about him, going back to when he was a very small child with tiny hands. And like, the best way to get attention and the best way for him to feel like he has leverage over the investigations is to be in. And so why wouldn't he be in? That's what it comes down to for me. Maybe something else happens. I can't get inside his brain, but that's sort of where I land.
But part of his leverage is not running. So part of his leverage is like the idea that he wouldn't run. Like, I've always thought that one of the ways they negotiate this thing, that Merrick Garland potentially negotiates this thing, is to say, like, you commit to not running and not holding office again, and like that's what we'll do to avoid a civil war.
I think you're in JVL fantasy politics land here. I just don't see that.
Why is that the fantasy? No,
because you love West Wing fantasy politics. It's like Merrick Garland will walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, and decide I'll just do this myself and have a big meeting with Donald Trump.
Why isn't that a piece of leverage?
It is I think Trump thinks that that he has the leverage in this case, right? Which is like, yes. I'm running.
Yeah, it's not negative leverage.
You
will make positive leverage. Yeah. All right. Before we move on, I want to talk about our friends at Boll and Branch, the linens company who made these wonderful sheets that they gave us. I say this every week, but it's true. I'm going to keep saying it until you people listen to me and treat yourself to these sheets. Long staple cotton. It makes them incredibly supple, but also substantial. They're soft. They're really well-engineered sheets, well-designed, incredibly deep pockets on the fitted sheet. I love the crap out of them. They're the best sheets I've ever owned. And I've spent a lot of time going around buying luxury sheets over the last 15 years or so. Timothy, would you like to share a funny story from
Just
with
a little
the class?
anecdote. Yeah, I'd like to. My friend Sue DM'd me. Love Sue. She's a good listener, unlike some of you bad listeners who haven't done what Sue did. She went down to our local Bowl and Branch, kind of checked it out. Wanted to make sure when she bought the sheets, she got the Bowl and Branch, I guess. When she got the sheets, that she got the 15% off Bulwark code, gave them next level. She was surprised to find out that the employee there at Bowl and Branch had not heard of me, Tim Miller. She was like,
You're kidding.
his hysterical commentary about Bowl and Branch on the Next Level podcast. It's not mandatory listening for all the employees. So maybe
Did Sue
maybe
have
she
one
was
of your
just playing
headshots to pass out to him?
I don't know. Maybe she was just playing it cool. I don't know. But
Is Sue's last name Miller?
No, Sue's last name is not Miller. I don't want to fully out her, but we're grateful for Sue, and everybody be like Sue, and use the Next Level code to get your 15% off. And if you happen to be in a Bowl and Branch, just kind of ask, be like, have you heard of Tim? Do you follow? Are you watching Out My Party on Snapchat? Just kind of see what my popularity level is among Bowl and Branch employees, and keep me posted on that.
Well, this is the type of thing that people should treat themselves to it. Like, I think people get a little hinky about like, oh, do I need luxury sheets? And the answer is you do. Like, it's like a third of your day. You look, if you're not 22 years old, like if you are a grown ass adult and you have a job and you sleep in a bed, then treat yourself to some nice sheets. I myself am going to, actually, I think as soon as we're done, I'm going to go to the Bowl and Branch website and treat myself to their herringbone bed blanket, which looks amazing. And I'm getting one of those for myself as well. Okay, try the sheets that will make fall the coziest season of the year. Get 15% off your first set of sheets and free shipping when you use promo code NEXTLEVEL at bowlandbranch.com. That's Bowl and Branch, BOLLAND branch.com. Promo code Next Level.
Be like Sue.
So I have a question. Is there anybody in all of America rooting harder for Katie Hobbs than Ron DeSantis? Because although Ron DeSantis has gone and campaigned with Kari Lake,
I think me, and then
surely
Ron DeSantis.
he looks at her and sees in her the reptilian cunning and the master of media that he is not. And he must fear her. No?
Yeah. No, Kari Lake, we've been talking about this for a while, JVL. And, the first person who said it to me was Mark Caputo from Florida, who is like a Ron DeSantis aficionado. It sees him up close a lot. And then I told it to you on the Secret Pod. And, I think that we all sort of were like, yes, this is the right take. And the right take was that Kari Lake is the true heir to MAGA and Ron DeSantis is not. And the reason that she is so good is that it does come down to charisma. And that was what was on display last night, was his negative charisma. Somebody did a mashup of his facial expressions. And I actually didn't realize that Tim was imitating him before. And I was like, what is going on with Tim's face? But he looks so uncomfortable in his own skin. And she looks like she's living a dream every day. She also looks like she is having fun. Ron DeSantis does not look like he's having fun. He looks pissy and mad and everything irks him. And she is a happy warrior, the same way kind of Trump is, where everything's a little bit of a joke. She carries it kind of lightly. And she's able to talk about elections being stolen and how she's definitely going to do a full 4-year term as governor and all that stuff without blinking an eye. And that makes her really, really dangerous for the future.
The other thing is, not only is she better than him, not only will, if in some crazy sequence of events Trump doesn't run or Trump is unable to run, not only will she have Trump's loyalty for being loyal to him, so she'll have the Trump stamp of approval over him.
Great point.
And she also, there is something, we've talked about this before, I think, Sarah, you and I have, I don't remember if we did JVL, but Republican voters, there is something in them that's I want to prove to those woke libs that I'm not sexist. I'm not racist. So if you give me a woman or a person of color that is MAGA, that also hates the people I hate, that gives them an extra bump, actually, over just another normal white guy, right? Because it's like a stick in the eye of the media. So she has that going for her. She has her abilities better going for her. And the timing is working out for her, conceivably, in a way. I mean, obviously for the VP slot, but even if they ended up having to go head-to-head this time, I just... anything can happen. Who knows? But to me, just across the board, a clearer answer for where the party is than Ron DeSantis. And if we had a fantasy matchup between the two of them, it just seems to me like she's Trump and he's Ted Cruz. And it's just like a full rerun of what we just did in 2016. And we already saw what happens.
One more thing to this, which is if she wins, she becomes governor of the most razor edge swing state. Right? The one that has been turned in purple. She gets it back. She wins a state that Trump lost, right? And she defeats the Secretary of State that she says stole the election from Trump, right? Like, she has been full on in the election. She's been hands on. And so, like, the idea that she is, like, the warrior that can push back on this, like, it's got all the makings of a narrative that is a winner. With the base.
Which takes me back to my article, which is, let's fucking stop her. All right, yeah. We've only got 13 days. I mean, this has been the frustrating part about all this. And I told JVL before I submit it, and for folks who haven't read it, I wrote an article about how Katie Hobbs' campaign has been a dog's breakfast, and how it doesn't seem like she's getting the kind of help she needs from national Democrats to sort of boost her, and like that there isn't a fierce urgency of now about this campaign, which there should be when we have this, semi-fascist that's about to win a key swing state, who could put her finger on the scale for 2024, who would be on the top of the VP list, who'd be on the top of the POTUS list. So, let's try to kill this in the crib, right, when we still have a chance, because she could still lose. I mean, it is a close race. She's only up by 1 in 538. And I made the parallel to when I wrote that article during the presidential primary. Now, obviously, the threat between Bernie and Kari Lake is not equivalent, so any Bernie fans, don't get mad at me here. But when it looked like Bernie was going to win the nomination of the Democratic primary, and my concern was about Bernie, but really more about how I thought that it would make Trump more likely to win a second term. And I wrote the article that's just like, Democrats, wake up. This is happening. Circle the wagons and do what you can to stop this now. And they did. What happened? Pete and Amy drop out. They circle the wagons around Biden. They go and endorse him. They hold events with him. He gets that stuff matters, right? You can make difference around the edges. And the Democrats, for some reason, are letting Katie Hobbs die on a vine out there. She's not getting the Barack Obama trip that other people are getting. I wrote in the article about how Kristen Sinema and Mark Kelly are not helping her. Me and JVL had a private debate on Slack, which we can hash out here, about whether Kristen Sinema would actually help her. I think that she would. Other people think that she wouldn't. But okay, regardless of that, I think that there's she should at least be trying. And the fact that she won't even say she's voting for her is insane. And I think it's very clear that Kristen Sinema doing an ad that was like, hey, I've been crossways with the Democrats on a bunch of stuff, and I'm an independent voice, but this Kari Lake lady is a fucking lunatic. So please do what I'm doing. Voting for Katie Hobbs would certainly help, right? And yet none of that is happening. Hobbs is limping into the finish line.
Can I I'm just want to come down squarely on Tim's side here on the idea that Kristen Sinema, literally anybody endorsing her right now who's holding office that creates headlines of more people endorsing Katie Hobbs creates narratives that are good for Katie Hobbs. Because right now, all the headlines are about people abandoning Katie Hobbs and how she's running such a bad campaign. Yeah. And so people don't want to endorse her. That stuff compounds. And so you've got to change that trajectory by being like, no, let's get every endorsement we can. And national Democrats, gets the media talking about it. So 100% they should be jumping in for her.
I mean, I do want to clarify here that when we say that Katie Hobbs is running a bad campaign, we don't mean that she's running a Herschel Walker campaign, right? She's just running an ineffective, boring campaign.
What do you mean about a Herschel Walker campaign? There's some similarities.
What I mean is she's not insane.
To answer questions.
No,
no, she's not insane.
No, but
what I mean is that she is not an insane person.
But the difference with the Herschel Walker campaign is actually a good corollary to see how Republicans have circled the wagons for him. right?
Yeah,
Like, you
that
don't
is
see
exactly-
Kemp's didn't run away from him. Like, everybody's still in
Yep.
for Herschel. Everybody's good for Herschel. Everybody circled the wagons on him. But people,
And
this is the difference between Republicans and Democrats.
One of the differences between Republicans and
that's
Democrats.
true.
There's a story out today, NBC, I think, had it, or CNBC, about all of the corporate donors who have jumped on board with Kari Lake, which, again, I mean, Kari Lake has said that she wants to lock up her opponents. She wants to jail her opponents, and maybe she doesn't mean it or whatever, but like, she is a loon. And she's dangerous, and corporate America is like, fine, we're there. And just, as you say, the lack of support for Katie Hobbs is amazing. Can we finally get, I don't want to make this about cinema bashing, but I don't know, Kristen Sinema not even saying that she would vote for the perfectly normal Democrat. Like, this is the difference, right? Here is the difference between Democrats and Republicans. Your boy Sununu, Sarah, is all in on the General Don Bolduc, right? Yeah. And Kristen Sinema won't even say whether or not she is voting for Katie Hobbs. That's the difference between Democrats and Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, this is just Republicans, like, fall in line, right? They circle the wagons. And I wrote in this piece, like, the end of the good Republicans, like Sununu and Ducey and all of these guys who are endorsing these insane people. And, like, the anti-antis who argue that, like, well, this is incrementalism. You have to do this. This is how we pull the party back from insanity. From insanity. And I'm like, guys, the radicalization's going the other way. Like, it is the radicalization of Sununu and Ducey and Youngkin is what's happening here. That's the big story. And like corporate, like 2022 is the year that the establishment Republicans, in air quotes, and corporations just gave up. Like, they just gave up and were like, yep, we're all in for these election denying lunatics. Like,
well, they understand that that's the only future.
But Tim, don't you think that Katie Hobbs must have waved Sinema off? Like, there's no way these campaigns don't talk to each other, right?
Yes, I do think I know actually that Katie Hobbs did not want or has not asked Sinema. Let's put it that way. Has not asked Sinema for help. I know that, and I think I put that in the article. And so this is on the list of things that are wrong. So I have a pox on all their houses, right? Like, I think Katie Hobbs is running a bad campaign. I think that the National Democrats are not doing what they can to help her. And the DGA put in $8 million, which is good, but like, there's no sense of urgency. There's no sense of, okay, like, let's break glass here and bring in the Obamas, bring in anyone popular. And yeah, I don't know. Sinema could do something on her own. She has her own agency, right? Maybe they don't want her to say but like, this is crazy. Like, I won't even say on the record that I'm voting for her. Like, Katie Hobbs is running a bad campaign. She looks like a deer in the headlights in interviews. She just isn't that good at the performative part of politics. But like, she's normal. She's fine. Like, the Arizona has a Republican legislature, right? Like, it's not like Katie Hobbs is going to institute socialism or open the border to anyone that wants to come through Arizona, or believes in, like, General Don Bolduc believes that the vaccines are Bill Gates putting microchips inside of our bodies, like these life-saving vaccines that saved millions of people. That's what General John Bolduc thinks. He thinks that the Chinese Communist Party has infiltrated Mitch McConnell's office. Okay, Mitch McConnell's still for it. All right, now Katie Hobbs isn't any of that. She's just kind of a lackluster liberal, right? And I'm going to disagree with some of the things she wants to do, but like, I'm sure Kristen Sinema will disagree and agree that she's running against someone that is a frequenter of Steve Bannon's insurrectionist podcast, like, wants to use the Arizona surplus to drone the border, and who knows, might change the election laws so that the state legislature gets to decide who wins the 2024 election. And this is a crazy fucking lunatic. And I feel like I'm screaming into the ether when I'm calling around for this article, being like, why aren't more people trying to help stop this? It's like, well, we're doing what we can. We did our ads, and Katie Hobbs is running her campaign, and in Arizona, that's how you win, by being independent. And I'm like, that might have been how Mark Kelly and Kristen Sinema won, but they are different people than Katie Hobbs. All right, she looks like a normal liberal. She is a normal liberal, or progressive, actually, is probably a better word. She looks like a normal progressive. She is. Sinema and Kelly were able to run unique campaigns away from the Democratic party because they are unique. One's an astronaut, one is kind of a weird avuncular human. So, like, to say that like Katie Hobbs should run like them is just, like asking a duck, to walk around the street.
Yeah, but
That's
also
a terrible analogy, but you know where I'm going.
But the thing that all Katie Hobbs needed to do was go on offense. Like
Yeah,
Kari
sure.
Lake has given her all kinds of fodder to appeal to normie voters. And so like the thing that makes me upset with the campaign that she's running is that she is not present doing that, right? Like the not debating and the things like that. When you have an opponent who you can hit for being an anti-vaxxing, election-denying, like absolutely insane person, you have to go hit them on those things. Cameras, like, you have to go out and make that case. And it's the badness of her is the unwillingness to prosecute that case against Kari Lake. That's the criminal part here. Like, I can't even blame everybody else. But I mean, I can blame everybody else because what they're doing is they want to protect themselves by being like, well, she's running a horrible campaign. Like, I can't be attached to that. And like, this is the part where you're like, okay, I just like don't understand why they don't go to her and say, get out here. Like, we'll back you up. Like, this is really important. Like, go out there and we will stand behind you and we will say that you're right and we'll all go hit her. Like, where's the team unity? Like, put on the jersey, everybody, and go get Kari Lake.
Give me a primetime rally, 7:00 at the Arizona State Football Stadium, where you got Obama and the heavy hitters out there just ripping Kari Lake over and over again. Like, here is this lunatic said this thing, this lunatic said that thing. Like, I mean, the hit list on Lake is a mile long. It's on abortion, it's on schools, it's on vaccines, it's on I guess maybe you don't want to talk about the border stuff, but her border shit is even insane. It's about how she wants to use the state's money. I mean, like, you could just go down the list.
Draw a contrast.
Nothing.
Tim, the price of gas is so high, and it's the fault of the Republican governor in Arizona, and so that's why Kari Lake needs to be elected, right?
Well, that's what the Republicans are saying, which is fine, but I'm talking about the normal Democrats. I'm putting this one on the Democrats. Why aren't they doing it? Why aren't they carrying this? I also, by the way,
I don't know.
Jeff Flake and Cindy McCain, God love them, they're ambassadors now. And so I guess they can't weigh in on this. But do they have proxies? Can we just at least leak to the fucking Arizona Republic that we heard that Cindy McCain voted for Katie Hobbs? I'm just saying, give me anything. Give me anything. Anybody.
So what do you guys, we're 2 weeks out. What would if you had to bet $5 on this, what do you bet on? Do you bet on Lake or Hobbs or an election that devolves into some sort of recount fight insanity?
So here's the thing. So I have been to full disclosure, I talk about it on the pod. I am working in a bunch of these races, right? Or we have ads, we have campaigns in a bunch of these races. And it's Republicans talking about why they will not support the Republican candidate because they're anti-democracy and insane and whatever. And I saw a poll. So one of the races is Secretary of State race in Arizona is extremely important. The guy who's running with Kari Lake is also a massive election denier. He's got like anti-Semitic, like he's got all kinds of crazy stuff in his past. Just total weirdo. Adrian Fontes
Nazi stuff
is
on
the Democrat.
Pinterest. I just like to bring that up. He posted Nazi
he's
stuff
just
on
like
Pinterest.
he's so bad.
Just a little Nazi Pinterest, not a big deal. Usually recipes.
So right now, Katie Hobbs and Kari Lake are in a statistical tie in a lot of these polls. But Adrian Fontes is running several points ahead of Mark Fincham. He's like legitimately up on him, which means that there are people making that distinction. And so I could make an argument, a really optimistic one, Sarah the optimist, that Republicans are the ones peaking too soon, that they peaked last week, and that right now gas prices are coming down, stock market is up, and that if Democrats would just go on offense in this moment, draw the contrast, hit hard, because this is true in Wisconsin between Evers and Tim Michels. It's a similar situation. You got Evers. It's just that Evers is the incumbent, but he's also got a charisma problem. Michaels is the Trumpy, businessman or whatever. But like, circle the wagons, get Obama out there. I might leave Joe Biden at home, but like, and push really hard. Democrats should marshal every resource, all the money. They should focus on these governor's races. And I'm not sure, because one of the big things that's happening, like if you look back, I might have said this to you guys, but like the turning point in the race was when Democrats had been really winning on abortion, but Ron DeSantis put a bunch of migrants on a plane and he changed the conversation away from abortion to immigration, which no matter how bad you think that stunt was, is better territory for Republicans in every way. And then they just buried people in crime ads. Gas prices went up, whatever. But it is possible to return that narrative to be like, Democrats make late push, but like you got to do those things that create those headlines, because the headlines are part of what's creating the vibe of now, right? Is the sense like everything's collapsing, Republicans are on offense in Oregon and offense in Washington. Like you can do those things too. Democrats could do those things. Take the Ohio race. Go in for Tim Ryan, go on offense places, push the envelope, get people to talk about they're collapsing. Republicans are collapsing in New Hampshire because of Bulwark. There are ways to go on offense here and make a closing argument that ends things on an upswing for you Democrats. It's not over yet. There's 2 weeks to go.
Ryan is going to lose by 6, and Bulwark is getting close. Sorry.
I think that I think that Lake will probably win, but not definitely. It is a close race, and I think that your point about Fincham and Fontes is well taken. I think that there will be craziness that happens because I'm worried about violence, but I think there'll be craziness with the counting. It takes Arizona a while to count. We all lived through this. But I don't, I've continued to say I would not be surprised if Democratic governor candidates outperform what happens in the environment on the national stuff because of the abortion thing. That is still, even though that's not what is being talked about as much in the narrative, that will still drive votes. And so, we'll see. But I agree with Sarah. Like, you have to do something. They have to change the momentum. And I think that it is, at this point, just as likely that Hobbs wins narrowly as that Lake wins kind of handily and carries across, masters with her at least, and possibly even Fincham. I think the Fincham is the least likely of that, but possibly even Fincham. I think that outcome is just as likely as a Katie Hobbs narrow victory. And I think that a Lake narrow victory is probably the most likely outcome. But all three of those are possible, and the race isn't over. And just like, sleepwalking into letting this woman win Arizona is insane.
My prediction is that regardless of what happens, Kari Lake will declare victory basically as soon as the polls close.
Yeah, well, that's a safe bet.
And I think that's part of, right? I mean, the minute the polls close, she's going to say we won. And that's the most alpha Trumpy thing to do. And, she'll move from there. Okay, so listen, we just talked about bad Democrats with the Katie Hobbs. I want to talk about good Democrats. So yesterday we had the release of a letter from the House Progressive Caucus led by Pramila Jayapal. No, it's not. So they released this stupid letter calling for the Biden administration to reassess their position on Ukraine and really focus on talks with Russia. And it's very bad. In 24 hours later, they've retracted it, which is what responsible governing parties did. They didn't double down and double down and double down. They didn't say, actually, you go try to find the person who is recruiting migrants in Texas. We're not going to say who that was, but they just said, yep, this was bad. We shouldn't have done this. This is a wrong thing to propose and would actually be harmful. We take it back. Which is, again, what a responsible governing party does. Isn't that heartening to anybody? No?
I think it's good. I like.
Instead, I see people dunking on them on Twitter, and they're like, oh, look at them. They're saying, it's a,
that's right.
I'm like, what? I'm sorry, they're doing the right thing.
It is a little confusing how they let that happen. So it was a mistake.
This is preposterous.
Of course, it's preposterous.
They're blaming a staffer. And maybe that's true, but either way, I got to tell you, JVL, I understand it is good that they withdrew it. That is the right thing. Yes. It is better than doubling down, which is what Republicans would have done or whatever. This is like the kind of thing that is so incompetent 2 weeks before a midterm, you undermine the president's position and put something out like this. Like, this is insanity. And then then you have to pull it back. Like, the whole thing looks ridiculous.
I understand and agree. But on the other hand, taking the politics aside from it, this is the responsible governing thing to do.
No, not the politics of it, like the competence of it.
Can I give a contrarian, Sarah-esque, rose-colored glasses view of this? Maybe their incompetence kind of helps Biden a little bit. You know, makes him reminds people that he's tough and normal and strong and wants to take on the Russians, and that he's not actually owned by these liberal assholes. Everyone says that Biden is just a puppet for the squad, and it's like the squad puts out a stupid statement. Biden's administration says, fuck you, no. A couple smart Democrats, like my man Jake Auchincloss, it's a great name, put out statements talking about how dangerous and wrong this is. And the Progressive Caucus says, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Biden, Mr. President Biden, you are right. I don't know. Maybe you could position it as a little bit more of a, kind of alpha move that debunks the concerns that are out there, that the administration is really just, at the beck and call of the far left. I mean, it's hard to imagine this happening in Kevin McCarthy's caucus, which is the Freedom Caucus putting out a statement, and then Kevin McCarthy being like, no, that was wrong, and the Freedom Caucus being like, yes, sir, Mr. McCarthy, you were right, we were wrong. That's very hard to imagine. So there's something to be said for that, no? No green shoot there for you?
Coalitions are big and unwieldy, and the center mass of the Democratic Party is basically just a center-left responsible party. And even the far-left part of the caucus, in terms of elected officials, do not have brainworms. Like, they may be incompetent, they may be silly about things like that we care about, like, for instance, whether or not we should be opening negotiations with Vladimir Putin and freedom. But they're not insane, and when they get caught out like this, they act like responsible politicians do and responsible government officials do. And this strikes me as encouraging.
I'm gonna be the bad guy here and tell you that, like, this is the problem, is that this is like a habit, right? Like, Joe Biden comes out and says something, and then like his staff walks it back. Like, he makes like kind of big important foreign policy statements, and like then his staff is out there trying to clean it up. Like, the amount of like weird, like the amount where Democrats say something and then they're like, no, never mind, or that's not really what we think. Like, I would say that if we hadn't just had the most inept, most insane Republican president of our lifetime, I would be looking at these guys being like, are you serious with all this? This is crazy. Also, Joe Biden fell asleep in that interview with what's his name on MSNBC.
Have I just been beamed into the commentary podcast?
Oh,
Jonathan Capehart.
Jonathan Capehart, thank you. Did you? I just am not going to ignore this stuff and say like this is normal, competent ways of being. I can't give them that much credit on this. I think that the walking this back is the right thing to do, but also this whole thing looks.
Well, this
ridiculous.
is not what I was going to say before you veered into the Joe Biden dozing off for a second there. Which, by the way, I dozed off last night watching Nocturnal Animals. All right, that happens to the best of us. We all have a big day, big life.
Is that a euphemism?
No, it's like a movie. It's like a Tom Ford movie I'd never seen. Just went put up on. Okay.
It's a bad movie though, and
I dozed off a little bit.
I think there's a difference between falling asleep on one's couch watching a movie and being in the middle of talking to someone in an interview on television, and like sort of maybe going to sleep for a minute.
That's fair. But he did the right thing on the Progressive Caucus letter. I do agree with that, and where I was going to go with this is, I do think that the Democrats could benefit from like. I feel like every Democrat needs to hire either a dad or a lesbian mom who's between the age of 38 and 48 and who feels very uncomfortable with the new woke language, and have that person be the approval person on every piece of communique that goes out. I do think a lot of these problems stem. I don't know if it's true that it was really a young junior intern that put out the press release, but I do think that a lot of these problems stem from who is controlling the communication with this media and the communication on social media. And they are like 26-year-old Brooklyn progressives Love Brooklyn progressives. Love the 26-year-old Oakland progressives. I'll see you at Starline later. But like, you know, we need a check on that. We just need like a guy with dad jokes, you know, or mom jokes, whatever. Just, you know, a middle of the road. Get Reverend Warnock, you know, somebody with a sweater vest and some dad jokes to just look at all the communiques before they go out.
All right, before we get out of here, clean up from last Thursday night. Is there anything that you guys would like to share with me from the big live event?
There was a woman in the front row with a printed out sign that said, "Good show, long show." I can't believe we didn't close with that, because Tim at the end was like, "Is there anything else you guys want to add?"
And
I just said
host.
like, "Love you guys," but I wish I had said "Good show, long show." That would have been perfect.
I thought I did a nice job hosting. I don't know, JV, did you listen to it? You want to grade me as a, you know,
I
give
didn't
me a
listen
figure
to it. Is it
skating judge?
available?
Yeah,
It didn't come
This
across
is
my
amazing.
feed.
Tim's response is, "I think I did a good job hosting."
Well, okay. Well, you were critical of my clothes. I didn't close
wasn't
it down on the
criticizing
clothes,
it.
but I thought I did. I'm not a professional.
I
but
wasn't being critical. I was
moved.
saying that it was a missed opportunity from me when you asked me for my clothes.
Well, sometimes I hear criticisms, and I just assume
I thought you meant on your clothes, as in what you were wearing. And I was going to say, I did not make fun of your clothes. Charlie made fun of your clothes because you were wearing a pink hat. Oh, and I made fun of you on stage,
peach.
though, about it.
It was peach, actually. The hat was peach.
Yeah.
Not pink, but it's okay. I also had a lot of necklaces. It was awesome, man. The people
was the
are
best.
great. We're very good. You know, usually, like I expect at the bookstores. Here's the thing: when I'm going around on the book tour at the bookstores, I have a couple people who are super Bulwark fans that come, but the majority of the audience are people that are pretty gray in the hair. Okay, I love my elders and all that, and that's wonderful. It's the type of people who show up to bookstores. You know, everyone has things going on. I was impressed by just the demographic. You know, we're bringing some fans from all of the generations, and that's nice. I like that. I loved hearing from people, and it was really good. I do have one other thing, JV, unless you had any questions, follow-up questions about what you missed.
No.
So I have something
here to
coming
absorb.
today, and I want everybody's opinion on it. Sarah's mostly because she's a professional, but JVL's, I'd like your take too. I received a message yesterday from a mutual friend, and they said, "Hey, my friend and former roommate, drag queen Margot, is agreed to go on the Jesse Waters show tomorrow night." And Jesse had been talking about how it's inappropriate for children to see drag shows on a show last week, and he found the Herschel Walker of drag queens to come on the show and say that she agrees and does not want children at her shows, and she would walk out if a child showed up. And so drag queen Margot is being invited on to rebut it. And as soon as we finish taping this, I'm going to talk to her and give her some tips for her appearance with Jesse Waters. So I'm just wondering if you guys have any advice or guidance that I should give her.
I have 3 things to say.
All right, great.
The first is that the drag queen discourse is only one rung above the kitty litter box discourse, the human litter box discourse, in like its stupidity relative to our actual culture. 2, when it comes to actual drag queens, and like if you are in the LGBT community, you are always like going to drag queen bingo or whatever. Those were not children appropriate. None of them. They're barely adult appropriate. Drag queens are mean. They yell at you. Part of their whole shtick is to be as cruel as possible while you're there. Like, that's the point. If you've ever gone to drag brunch, none of these things are appropriate for children. Don't take your children there. Third, I've never understood.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm a parent. I can take my kid to whatever I goddamn please. And I will take my child to a drag brunch. Who cares? Think about all the stupid shit that the MAGAs make their kids watch on TV. There's plenty of shit I don't think is appropriate.
They're like, is it like drag queens are Triumph the Insult Comic Dog? Is that what it is?
They are. That is like, that was always
I didn't
the
know that. Having never been to one of these events, I don't know.
Tim, of course, anybody's welcome to take people can do whatever they want to take their children. Do I think that culturally, would I say that that's an appropriate thing to do? I do not believe it is an appropriate thing to do.
Okay, well, that hurts my feelings, I guess, but I don't live in suburban Maryland like you do, so I understand that maybe we have like a
They're
little
not
different
fun and
cultural
affirming. It's not like
That's nice.
like a we're all in this together kind of thing.
There's some of that. Yeah. Rainbow.
I just assumed that a drag brunch would be like a big
there's
like
also
happy
reading.
thing, not a
There's
not
reads.
like an
there's
insult comic
insults.
thing.
Yeah. There's a little bit of both.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, the ones like that I have been to, which are great fun. Usually what happens is like city folk take their bougie parents to them, and like a drag queen like does a Beyonce dance, makes some dildo jokes, and then like grinds on the dad to make him uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And like I would say that's a pretty standard thing, and like I wouldn't take my kids to that. I would take my kids to I to like.
Would you take your parents to that?
No, I actually never like I've never quite understood the allure. Now the brunch was terrific, and I myself would go with my friends and like eat sushi at 11 a.m. and drink mimosas. Like that's a fun time, but I wouldn't say it's like kid fare.
Well, this is a really great opinion to know. It's nice to know that we, are culturally, having differing of opinions. Last week on the show, we had a disagreement about pot gummies, and now about the drag queens.
I'm
and
with
so
you
this
on the
this
pot
is
gummies.
this I know. So now this is part of your olive branch. For people who are like, oh, the Bulwark, they've gone too woke. They're fully in with the trans community and they love the drag queen bingo. I'll be like, no, actually, the publisher of the Bulwark feels deeply uncomfortable at drag queen brunch apparently, and does not want to take children there. So that is like kind of an
Enjoys drag
olive
queen
branch.
drunk myself.
That's an
not
olive
going to take
branch.
my kids.
Excuse me, it's an olive branch for you to the MAGAs. That's nice. What was your third point? You forgot it?
Listen, you
Oh,
get that on. Okay, you got it. Go ahead.
Oh no, I just drag queen story hour. Like
Yeah.
I guess I've never understood why anybody thinks like I think that drag queens as a concept that is fun and affirming and people doing what they want. Like I love a good drag queen situation. The idea of like creating a concept, the story hour, just to have like kids intermingle with drag queens, I have never quite understood. I don't think it should be banned. I'm not like mad at David French or I'm not with Sora Omari, but like I don't think it's the collapse of civilization. I just think it's like I've never understood.
Well,
it.
I was actually looking for advice for Margot for her performance tonight. That was
Can I-
not helpful
can
on
I
any
give
of the
that to
three
you,
counts. So
Tim?
JVL,
'Cause I
please,
have that.
coming to you.
Here's my advice: don't ever fucking
Don't
go
go
on a hostile program for two reasons. Okay, the first reason is that those people are making money. That's why Jesse Waters goes on TV every night. He's not doing it for the discourse. He's not doing it for the furtherance of ideas. He's doing it to make money. Why would you go on to somebody you don't like's show and help them make money? That's insane. But secondly, here's a thing that I think people who are not media professionals maybe don't understand. When you go onto somebody else's show, you are going to lose. First time, every time, because they control the format. I would not go onto one of these guys' shows because no matter how smart and clever you are, you can't get the best of them because they own the editing button and they own the format. In the same way that if somebody wanted to debate me in print, that would be really fucking foolish of them because I'm very good at it. Like you don't walk into somebody else who does this for a living on the other side and think that you're going to get a fair hearing. It's crazy to ever do that.
So that was extremely unhelpful on both counts. Just really quick though, before I give my reply, did you guys notice was my screen? I think we just had a very minor earthquake here during JVL's answer. Did you notice my screen?
That was my truth bomb.
That was your truth bomb? Okay, well, we're going to have to Google it. I think we might have had a very minor earthquake. The leaves on my, not on my wallpaper, that was static, but the leaves on my real flora was moving, and I felt like this. It also could have been my dryer upstairs. Anyway, very unhelpful. Margot has already committed to going on. I've been called
I'm sorry.
in
Did
for
she sign a binding contract?
I've been
What are you going to
called
say,
in.
Tim?
I've been called in for an emergency help, and I'm going to provide that. And hopefully she can execute on it. And if she doesn't,
Well, tell me your advice.
Such
I want
is
to know
life.
what you're going to say.
Well, I think that I'm going to tell her to be on offense, which is exactly the type of advice that I would hope that Sarah would have would have
in what
said.
way?
I said this is live to tape. You can talk for as long as you want. If he wants to try to interrupt you, don't worry about him. It's your conversation, not his. He can ask you a question. You can just start talking about all of the important parts about drag and how that's been affirming for you, and how you don't think that the government should be getting in anybody's way that's trying to do something, and that you can be on offense on parental rights. And I don't understand that the network that wants parents to be able to have rights. If parents want to bring their kid out to the wholesome Margot the drag queen show where we read books, I think that should be perfectly fine for them to do. I don't know why it's any of your business, and I don't really remember Jesse Waters bringing up Denny Hastert and his child molestation. And I was just wondering if you're planning on doing any segments on the actual child molesters. So, something along those lines. I don't know that exactly what it's going to be. I was going to let Margot tell me what her plans were, and I was going to just try to nudge her more towards an offensive posture. And we'll see how it goes. I concur. I would not have done it, but we are where we are. She should
write a Medium post. She should tape a TikTok. Like, do something where she controls the format and controls what gets aired.
Sebastian says there was an earthquake. How about that? Live on videotape. I appreciate your non-advice. It's not. She's not on for a few hours now. So if anything comes up, you can let me know. And if it's good, we'll see it on Twitter. And if it's not good, we'll just pretend like this never happened.
Well, can I just say that your point, I would say that the most effective points, because, I don't know, all drag shows are different. Perhaps hers is wholesome and family friendly. I don't know. I've never been to one of those drag shows. But the point about parents have the right to make decisions for their children. And if you believe in parental rights, then it is so strange to watch all these parental rights advocates suddenly be in a position to tell all kinds of parents what they can and can't do. I don't know. I think that's an effective argument. Not you, JVL.
And that's Margot buzzing in right now.
All right.
So I think that's it. I got to go help her out.
Good show. Long show. Everybody hit the subscribe button. Leave us a review. Give us 5 stars and follow us. We'll be back next week. Bye.
Bye.
Peace.